not. If you wouldn't like to be in our recorded, I would like you to switch off the camera. Also, we have some rules which you can read behind me, and I'm very happy to see you. Today we have a special guest. Today our guest is Sebastian van der Lans. I don't know if you've heard of him before. He's been in media like for at least 2 weeks, like extensively. So I'm sure that you've seen or heard any just a little bit of WordProof. That's good enough, because today we're gonna crack the whole mystery and see what is behind WordProof. Before that, this is a GoDaddy Pro Meetup. GoDaddy Pro is a suite of tools which is useful to web developers and designers in case they are supposed to maintain websites. I'm just gonna put in the chat the link to our website, so you might want to check it out. How you can benefit actually from using GoDaddy Pro. Also, in addition to that, we have until the end of the year, there is a very interesting offer that we give in cooperation with Woo. So you might want to check this link as well and just check it out whether it would work for you. So without delaying more of expectations, I would like to start asking our Sebastian. Like, Sebastian, how are you doing, first of all, these days? I've seen you in media, so many interviews, so many newspaper articles and social media posts. Tell me, how are you?
I'm doing fine. And first of all, thank you, Maya, for great hostmanship. And we have a round. Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Actually, we're doing fine. We had won a prize of the European Commission. We were really happy with that recognition. We just announced the Yoast investment, and onwards and upwards from here. Let's build a trusted web together with all of us.
Wow, that's awesome. Without further ado, I mean, and explanation, maybe it would be great if you could already start sharing your screen. After Sebastian finishes with the introduction of WordProof, we're going to have a themed Kahoot as well. So if you listen very well, I'm sure you're going to actually be the winners. Like, it's not only the fast fingers and it's not only the general common knowledge, but it's also a little bit about WordProof. So Sebastian, the floor is yours. And let us hear how we can connect WordPress websites and blockchain technology.
Yeah, super nice. And we're with, how many are we? What do you normally do? Do you do the questions in between or at the end?
Usually we keep the questions until the end, but if somebody would like to write a question in the chat, we can also look at it if the topic is like if you're just talking about this. If not, we can just handle it in the end.
Perfect. And can you all see my screen? Yes. I guess it is. Yay, perfect.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. If if you don't grasp immediately what I say or tell, please, I consider that my fault. So ask every question you have. Don't be shy, and let's have a wonderful time together. Here we go. Yeah, it's all working. Perfect. Fixing fake news and online fraud with blockchain timestamps. That's quite a big topic. And what does this have to do with search engine optimization, and why did Yoast invest? We will grasp that in the coming 20 to 25 minutes. Some of you might have heard of WordProof because we won the prize from the European Commission. That was €1 million to grow the company. There was a contest with 175 participants from over 43 countries. So we were the winners because Europe said, hey, this can be really a solution to fight fake news and all in an open source way. So that's what what I will share about. I did a keynote on WordCamp 2019. There I told that I would have been married this year. And actually I would have married in 2 or 3 days, but we postponed that for 1 year. But thanks everyone for asking about it, because I shared a story there about Rick Astley, that we were trying to have Rick Astley as a singer on our wedding. We didn't manage to get that, but we have 1 more year to arrange that. Thanks for asking for who did. What we will do in the coming 25 minutes together. Firstly, I'll do a quick introduction in WordProof. Secondly, I have 4 use cases why timestamping or where timestamping could work. That's for publishers, e-commerce, could be for copyright protection, and lastly, for search engine optimization. And then I'll tell you how to get started, and then the fun part, the questions and answers. And I'll start with sharing part of the pitch we did with the European Commission. So I hope you have a nice drink, a coffee, a water, and let's go. Although the internet has brought us many great things, it has deep-rooted issues, and that's with trust. At least in Europe, 29% of the people are kind of suspicious to the internet, and over 86% of all the people say that they have fallen for fake news at least once, and that are the people that know it. And what we say is that the internet was built on kind of insecure rails, and the mission of WordProof's timestamp ecosystem is to bring a layer of trust over the internet, and all in an open source way. And what I like the most on the WordPress community, I run a WordPress agency for over 13 years, is the people in the WordPress community, they understand how open source can, let's say, we are the proof that open source communities plus open source software, we created a market leader over the last few years. So 38% of the whole internet runs on WordPress. And so we, people from the WordPress community, we already know what the power of open source is. So I think it's quite easy, or easier for us in the WordPress community, to grasp a concept like Bitcoin, blockchain. It's open source technology. You can think in many ways of it, but Bitcoin is kind of an open source form of money. For us, it's still not easy to understand, but it's easier for us who understand the mechanics of open source. So let's see how far we come. WordProof brings with timestamps a layer of trust over the internet. What that does is, or what you want to achieve in an open source way, is that what I read on the internet, that I can verify who wrote it. Was it really that politician, that doctor, that journalist, that web shop? Or in case that I create something, if I create something, I want to have to prove that it's mine. And if there's a dispute, for example, in e-commerce, I want to have leverage. I want to be able to show what the terms of the deal were at the moment I bought. This should be true for content, social, e-commerce, and every other corner of the internet. And that's what we were trying to build with WordProof and timestamps on the blockchain. Although we started as a WordPress plugin that automatically timestamps your content at the moment you publish or edit it, we're trying to build a whole ecosystem. So we started with WordPress, but soon we will launch a Shopify plugin. There's a way to timestamp automatically. There's a way to timestamp manually with a blockchain wallet. And what we are doing is a lot of advocacy with governments. For example, with Europe, we're talking with them to make it mandatory in a way to show that you didn't tamper with terms and conditions. So making timestamping, which is an open source way to prove that you didn't tamper with data, making it mandatory for at least terms and conditions to show, for consumer rights, that's a great thing. And on the other hand, what we're doing is a lot of advocacy with social media and search engines. I'll come back to that later with the fourth use case. Here, so what are the activities we're doing? We're making sure that everything is user-friendly and automatic and as simple as could be. Secondly, we're doing a lot of standardization, working with schema.org, working with governments, working with other standards to make sure that it's as easy as possible to get it in processes, in companies, in government, in every standard that makes sense. A bit on adoption, I'll show on that later. And what we firmly believe is that transparency, open source often offers transparency, but only to the people who build a website or build an e-commerce place. That transparency, everyone on the internet, if information impacts lives, in buying, in voting, in whatever it may be, it should be A, transparent, and B, the sender should have taken accountability to it. So what we firmly believe is transparency and accountability will lead towards a more trustworthy internet. On the left, you see a timestamp certificate. I'll show it in action a bit later. And on the right, you see some stats on adoption. So for example, this was a number from a month ago. Over 90 million page views have been served with a timestamp certificate, as you see it on the left. And what you can see in this certificate is on the top, you see, hey, there's a timestamp in the blockchain and it hasn't been changed. The content you're watching at hasn't been changed since the last timestamp. On the bottom, some publishers offer more transparency. There you can compare revisions of information. So on the left, you see the current text. On the right, the new text. If it's green, the text is added. And if it's red, it's deleted. And on the right, some more stats on adoption. And how we started this company in 2017, we started with the idea, and last year we registered the company. In 5 years from now, if you don't timestamp your articles on the blockchain, you're going to be considered a fraud. What are you hiding? What was, how did that change over time? What are you not willing to share anymore? And what we say is every content that impacts my life, whether it's a buying decision, health, voting behavior, if it impacts my life, I should be able to check at least its source. What is a timestamp? Bitcoin was published in 2008, and it was a white paper, open source form of money to transfer value from person to person. And Bitcoin is the most well-known application of blockchain technology. But what not many people are knowing is that the blockchain technology wasn't invented for Bitcoin, but it was invented in 1991. Why was it invented? For timestamping documents and information to prove that you didn't tamper with information. We made a series of videos. It's called the WordProof Academy, and it grasps exactly how it works. In this case, what is hashing and what is a timestamp? Because what we put in the blockchain is not content, because that would be risky with GDPR, but just a fingerprint, a hash of content, of documents. So I have 50 seconds of a WordProof Academy video. Maya, will you please put your thumb up if the sound is good? Here we go. I explain what timestamping is. And let's start with the basics. Hashing. What is hashing? Hashing is a mathematical technique that has been used for decades. You can hash a character, text, document, or web page with a hashing function. A same input always leads to the same output. But if you only change one single bit of the original input, then the hash changes completely. Although the input can be big or small, a single character or a big file, an outputted hash always has the same length. Another feature of hashing is that it's irreversible. It's easy to go from an input to an output, the hash, but it's hardly impossible to do the opposite, going from the hash to the input. Common names for the output of a hash function are a hash or a fingerprint, and WordProof adds that hash to a blockchain transaction, after which it can't be altered or removed. This hash stored in a blockchain is what we call a timestamp. So that's a bit of the theory. On wordproof.io, wordproof.com/academy, there are all free videos explaining aspects of how the timestamping in an open source way works. There we go. So that's what is a timestamp. And let's have a look at 4 use cases. Number 1 is publishers. And here you see it's 2 sites from publishers. And what you often see on that website is last modified 3 hours ago. We all recognize that from one or more of the sites we know. You could say, wow, that's transparent. Thanks for sharing that you changed it 3 hours ago. That's super transparent of you. But you could be suspicious at the same time. What was there 3 hours ago that I'm not allowed to see anymore? And What you want is seeing, hey, what changed and how did that change over time? Especially if people base their opinions on this content or there we go. What you want is here. You can see there's an article. You click on a link. There you see, hey, there hasn't been tampered with, and you can see, scroll through the revisions and see with red what did it disappeared and with green what was there, all in Git style. How did it change over time? Does that make sense? That's the publishing use case. So making transparent how content changed over time, and some publishers dare to do it and others only want to show that they didn't tamper with it since the last revision. But in this way, you can offer both transparency as secondly, hey, you can as a journalist really claim, hey, I truly wrote this article. I put my autograph with the timestamp in the blockchain on it. With the buttons on the bottom, you can really check in the blockchain if it changed or not. So that's the publisher use case. Secondly, e-commerce. Think of this situation. If you buy a product has product information, product specifications, you have the terms and conditions, and all those things together, they create what the terms were at the moment of buying. If you buy something and it breaks and it's in the warranty period, you go back to the merchant. But what could happen is that the merchant say, yeah, sorry, the terms and conditions that have changed and now I can't help you anymore because the terms and conditions changed, or the product terms changed in a way that it's we don't have to help you anymore because the terms changed. What you can do with a timestamp is that you can prove on what terms you bought the product. So in case of disputes, many disputes in e-commerce have to do with information. Sometimes a merchant isn't friendly, and in other times the consumer isn't friendly. So it helps in resolving disputes. And what we can imagine is seeing a future going one step further is that you say, hey, on the product information, the specifications, the manufacturer puts a timestamp on it to make sure that the marketer couldn't make it more beautiful or overpromise on the way. And in that way, the whole trail of information from the one who manufactures it to the merchant who sells it to the consumer who creates a review, all trails in that information can be timestamped. So A, there's transparency, and B, there's accountability. It strengthens both the position of the seller as the position of the buyer. So that's timestamping in e-commerce. Thirdly, copyright. How would that work? This is a small studio, a design studio in Amsterdam, and they're called Blom & Blom, and they make wonderful lamps and furniture. They're a really small team, so 6 people. One of them is creating content. All other 5 are creating wonderful products. Their content is so wonderful, their pictures they make, that it happens a few times a month that people are copying their content, their images, and are just ordering or creating products of a cheap quality, and they copy their content, put it in the web shop, in a copied web shop, or they put it on eBay, and they try to sell fake copies of the product. But the sad thing is, they are not able to fight this because, they try to send an email to eBay, and they say, sorry, we can't do anything, or they don't hear anything back. And what happens is that as a small player, as a small publisher, as a small web shop, you're powerless against the big ones who copy. And sometimes it's copying of your products. Sometimes it's just people scraping your website and republishing all the content. What happened? They started timestamping, and they have the My WordProof environment. There you can, in just 5 minutes, you can say, hey, I want to collect all the proof of that this product was published on my website. I want to generate a letter, kind of a copyright takedown letter. You can generate it within 3 mouse clicks, and with putting in the URL of the copycat, with selecting the article or page or product on your site, you can generate a letter, and in 5 minutes you have a letter that you can send to the copycat or to eBay. And in their case, they weren't able to get it down from eBay until they sent that letter. And 3 times in a row, in less than 1 hour, the copy was removed from eBay. So in a way, what did that do? It made sure that small matters again. Being a small publisher, being a small web shop, they were powerless, but with those open source timestamps and a good letter in place, they were able to take down the copycats where they weren't before. So until then, they say, yeah, being copied is a downside of the work we do. We can't do anything, but with timestamps, they were able to do something. Ain't that cool? So there, what we say is small matters again, because WordPress is about democratizing publishing. What this does here is, in a way, it democratizes protection, legal protection in this case, to make sure that it's not others just copying their work and reaping the rewards of that. So it's a big step forward for them. Lastly, search engine optimization. Interesting one. Although search engines are incredibly smart, there are some problems that they aren't able to fix yet. So one of them is just changing the date. If you just change the date of an article, you rank higher in the search engine for a few days. You could say, okay, let's do it, but it's not really fair. It's not an equal level playing field. With a timestamp, you can prove that you didn't tamper with your data, and date is part of your data. So in an open source way, you can prove that you didn't try to trick the search engine. Secondly, there's duplicated content. So you have a small publisher publishing content, then a big publisher could republish that content. Sometimes it's permissioned, sometimes it's not permissioned, then it could be a scraper site or something. With timestamps, and in the timestamp, you can prove who was first, but secondly, if it was allowed or not allowed to copy the information. And what we do, and that's why the combination with Yoast makes sense, is making sure that we tell the search engines about timestamps. And because with the certificate, as a human, you can verify and check how information changed over time and what the blockchain timestamp is. But what we do is we offer the timestamps in a way that search engines can read it. And that's, of course, the way to do that is with schema.org. So here's another, minute of video explaining exactly how that would work. If you output your content with detailed structured data, you increase your chance of ending up higher and better with the rich cards in the search results. So structured data really matters. Outputting timestamps to structured data. As you've learned, word-proof timestamps can be viewed with a timestamp certificate. Via this certificate, the consumer, your buyer or reader, can verify your content. Nothing new there. But here's the catch. Wordproof outputs your blockchain timestamps as structured data too in schema.org markup. With this standardized timestamp presented via schema.org, both search engines and social media platforms can verify the integrity of your content. Why is that important and what are the benefits? To answer that, we need to look at current problems in search engines. Although search engines are incredibly smart, even Google has its limitations and issues they haven't been able to solve yet. For example, changing the date. The simplest form of search engine fraud is just changing the publication date of the content. In many cases, this temporarily bumps you higher in the search results. And with a blockchain timestamp offered via structured data, search engines can verify that you didn't tamper with the dates of your content. And then, duplicated content. Think of the following situation. A small site publishes high-quality content, and soon after, a bigger and better ranking site republishes the same content, getting it indexed earlier than the small site. Google might now wrongly Consider the small site a copycat. With blockchain timestamps, original publishers can prove that they were first, which can be verified by search engines. This levels the playing field enormously, and with timestamps in place, being a small publisher or a small shop matters again. So to summarize, a timestamped article is more trustworthy than a non-timestamped article. Never before did a trustless and open source solution exist to prove the existence and integrity of your content. And with your timestamps outputted to schema.org, you're ready for the next generation search engine optimization. So that's that on the output via schema.org. I think it makes sense. It's totally with the timestamps in schema.org. Yeah, you can prove not only to people, but also to search engines and social media that you didn't tamper with your data. There, it really makes sense to work together with the people at Yoast, as they did the schema.org implementation for over 11 million websites, probably including yours. So we are working with them, explaining to search engines how this could help. And yeah, it's a nice journey, and it's great to have them as a partner on board there. Lobby, actually, it's a full force. And the nice thing is, once that search engines recognize this open source way of showing your integrity, it really makes sense that you were first in timestamping it, because it's really easy to timestamp if you timestamp today and they will recognize it in half a year from now, they can still see that you didn't tamper that half year ago. So yeah, it's a nice way to prove your integrity, not only to people, but also to search engines. Adoption is, we are talking to multiple search engines. It's inevitable that an open source way to prove your integrity will be a standard, because there are ways, there are problems that need to be fixed here. And then it makes sense that you do it as early as possible. And with the timestamp ecosystem in place, you kind of a holistic solution, searching my mouse, it's a holistic solution from timestamping to verifying, a full ecosystem to make sure that you can prove your integrity in an open source way. So that's kind of sums up the whole story. Start timestamping today if you like to prove your integrity in an open way, whether you're a web shop, a publisher, if you do liable content, terms and conditions in any form, if you care about transparency, fighting fake news, albeit just for the search engine optimization. Let's timestamp. Let's try the plugin. There's a free plan. There's a fully open source way to do it with a blockchain wallet. It's a bit harder, but then it's 100% free forever to do, but harder, and you pay the blockchain fees. If you do the automatic thing, you can set it up in 5 minutes. There's a free plan for small users. And yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to hear A, your questions, B, your feedback on the product. And we always end with, let's build the trusted web together. So let's say that with all of us. Let's build the trusted web together. Back to you, Maya.
Awesome. I have nothing else to say. I mean, this is, I think, the third time that I'm listening to your presentation. And each time I learn something new, and each time I have a new question that I'd like to ask. But ask my questions. I would like to ask Milan. I had the question as well as Lokesh. So I just wanted to understand whether you guys got answers to your question that you posted in the chat.
Yeah, so I see a question from Milana, and Lokesh had the same question. What happens to a timestamp when we change the date to already published content? So with a timestamp, does the hash of content in a blockchain, the only thing that this timestamp says is that that specific content existed in that specific moment in time. Nothing more, nothing less. What you can do later is connect your identity to that blockchain address. Then you have not only transparency, but also accountability. But just a simple timestamp is just the proof that at the moment of that blockchain transaction, that specific content existed. Otherwise, you couldn't have that hash. The most powerful way to use this is timestamping immediately at the moment you publish information with new information you publish. With old content, it of course, you can timestamp old content, but the only thing that you can prove with that is not that the old content existed by then, but that the old content existed at the moment you timestamp it now. So the only accurate thing is the only accurate thing that people can always verify from that moment is that that specific content existed at that specific moment of the blockchain transaction in time. Is that an answer to the question, Milana?
Milana is quite...
Yes, thank you. I have another question.
Perfect.
Is it possible to timestamp content written with advanced custom fields plugin? Or is it just a default editor?
In this case, it's until now, or until 2 weeks ago, it was just posts and pages. What we added this week was custom post types, but it's not the ACF yet, but that's on the roadmap. And what I would advise you is to send that now to support@wordproof.io, because then they will work faster.
A few seconds ago, I just did. So
thank you. Yella is our head of product. They're a development team of 3. They will see, hey, there's another question for ACF. So maybe I'll advise all of you to send that same email. So it's high on our list because it makes it more inclusive for more WordPress projects. So
thank you.
Are there any more questions from anyone else?
Before Maya starts the roast.
Yeah, that's my time.
Am I rightly understand that all this data is collected and held in your data center servers?
It depends. So it's not necessary for the product to do that. It's because that's why I showed the video of hashing. If you use the fully open source way, the data never leaves. Oh, Olga stole one of my questions. Yeah. So if you the Bitcoin people will say, it must be totally decentralized. So then you install a blockchain wallet on your computer. Then you create the hash in your WordPress environment, and you put that hash on chain. That's option A. Option B is that you do it automatically, because we saw, hey, it's way too hard to work with blockchain wallets and private keys and stuff like that. So we made a software as a service solution with the free plan. That one, because it needs it for other features, puts the data in our system as well. But you can erase it there because it's not really necessary to create a timestamp. But in many cases, it's handy, for example, to create that legal letters, to create the proof, the documents, because the legal letter tool, it makes PDFs with all the proof, how content changed over time, all the things you would normally do when there's a copyright claim or stuff like that. So for the product to really work, it's not necessary to save the data. So if you do it in the fully open source way, we never save it. When you do it via our automatic platform, we store it, but we're making policy around, because it's not really necessary, only if you need the legal tools thing. So soon it will be a setting if you want to save it or not, because for the basic working of the product, it's not necessary to do it. But it's important to explain that well, because, for example, if there's a dispute about copyright, or if there's a fake news thing, you need the revisions to prove how it changed over time. And a lot of hosting companies or a lot of optimization plugins, they will remove your revisions. So it removes your proof, it removes your case. So yeah, that's the playing field based on what we make that decisions. But soon it will be a setting to choose if you want to push data to the platform. Make sense?
Thanks. Yeah.
I see Lokesh is actually having a lot of thoughts about this. Lokesh, do you have any more questions? I mean, I saw that you agree with Milana, but do you have any concerns of your own or perhaps suggestions?
This topic is fairly new to me, but I did have a question on the timestamp, which Milana asked. So not a lot to ask, but yes, it was something new, a new area, to get exposed to, a new area to learn.
Thank you. Stefan, is there anything coming from your side?
Well, hi there. I want to quickly say hi. Sorry for being rude in the beginning. I was still grocery shopping. I was still in the shop when I was calling in. I was like, okay, I kind of put on the camera and phone right now, but I was following the whole thing. So thanks a lot. First of all, also Sebastian for the great presentation. I think a great presenter. It was very nice following you even on the bike home. So I enjoyed that very much. I do have a quick question. It's about basically kind of two, but let's start with one. How does the schema.org implementation look like? Is that something that you're still like kind of working on right now, coming up with a new type of markup, or are you looking forward to implement an existing and utilize an existing type of markup?
Yeah, so how that would work is, and I have it here on our GitHub, what we will do soon is, because in schema you can do it on two ways. A is with the variables, just saying, hey, this variable with this value, or secondly, you can have it adopted in schema.org via a pull request and get the structure in. What we want is to have an article or web page, or to have an in-person, to have the timestamp as an object, making it part of that. How we do it now is, let me see. So we have it now in the way that we say, hey, this is the name of the variable. So that's the hash. It's the blockchain we timestamp it on. We define those things. And what we are working on, and Joost will do the pull request later this month, describing exactly how we propose the object to be part of some of the schema objects. So the person, the web page, the article, but also reviews later on, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm just like, I think what's at the back of my head still is like, I find it hard to imagine how will, for example, search engine be able to verify that? Is that they have to verify it with your servers or a specific blockchain kind of? Yeah, I know that's probably deeply technical, but
yeah. So from A to Z, it's, for example, we have on the WordProof website, there's a checker. So, or WordProof/check. Here you can put in, so if I have Sebastian, my blog here. Here's the link I can click on. This is explaining, because 85% of the Europeans, they gave that back in a research, is they want to be educated on fake news and online integrity. So we give some explanation. And here you have the view with the revisions. And what you can do is you get the raw input that leads to a hash. And that hash you can put in this checker to see if they, if it's the same as the one that is in the blockchain. So it's all, there's nowhere in the process there's trust in WordProof. All things we do are with the timestamping or the whole flow to verify is all open source. So the code for the checking is on our GitHub, but also here the article timestamp. So all the names comply with the schema.org names. Here you see, hey, this is the information. So it's the timestamp standard. It's the version of how we structured the standard, the title, the content, and the date. And we have some, those are the mandatory things. And you can also do the author, the URL, and we link the revisions with the previous version. So you can make sure that you have the full history of a piece of content. And here's an example. So how we built the JSON that's being hashed and timestamped on chain, it's all explained here on the GitHub.
I totally get that. Like that's great that you showed that. I didn't understand that the object would hold also the content itself. But if you have everything that you need to create this hash, of course, like that should be that makes sense. That then you can create that create that hash and check it with the blockchain.
Yeah.
So yeah, great. Thanks for explaining.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's what we do. So it's not, we don't call it a WordProof standard, because there will be competitors of WordProof using those same standards. And the most blockchain projects, they say, oh, we create our own standards, blah, blah, blah. We say, no, we are really committed to making the timestamps compliant with all standards that are there, that make sense for the web, that are already there, because that will make the chance of adoption as big as possible. And for search engines, they have all the inputs to create the hashes themselves and verify.
Thank you, Sebastian. Really, really good things to know. Anyone else would have a question perhaps, or if you have a client who you might think would benefit from having this on its website? Or okay, Olga has a comment. Yandex search engine is possibly popular only in ex-Soviet countries. Still, it's very popular here, and they have service original content for its sort of internal use. I suppose they can take part in this timestamping movement in general. I don't know if Sebastian is familiar with this.
Yeah, with Yandex, of course. Yeah, it's one of the big players. Actually, yes, in not here in the Netherlands, for example, but it's one of the ones we're talking about, because especially Joost he has a big, broad overview of what the search market looks like. One of the we want to work with many search engines. One other really interesting one is the DuckDuckGo, for example, because they do a lot of stuff with the privacy stuff. And especially you have Google, that's the big one. And then you have smaller search engines who want to have a competitive advantage, who need to have a competitive advantage to get their users. So what I expect is that not Google, but other search engines, or one of them, would say, hey, we want to be the first to show in the search results that content is timestamped or not.
Cool. That's totally cool. I just have, before we actually move to the fun part, if no one else has a question, I wanted to ask you, I mean, blockchain usually signups, Rahul is saying, thank you for lovely he's have to leave. Yeah, I'm sure, Rahul, it's very late in your part of the world. I think you need to get some sleep.
Sleep tight.
Yes, so basically when we talk about signing up for blockchain technologies, I mean, knowing that it's a very complicated process where you have to have an ID, where you have to have a passport, where you have to have some certain bill and stuff. How could you explain us the journey of how easy it is to sign up for a WordProof?
Yeah, it's literally, if you search for WordProof guide, it's literally 3.5 minutes. It's installing the plugin and how do you? I won't show it now, but it's just installing the plugin and setting it up and creating it, because blockchain is hard. Starting with Bitcoin is hard. So you have to install your own wallet. You have to download it. You have to get your keys really safe. And what we did is we changed the blockchain to the background. So setting up WordProof really takes you 4 to 5 minutes. And we had it was hard for us, because we started with making the open source plugin and making it possible to timestamp with a blockchain wallet. And then we thought, okay, from now on, everyone. So when we launched last year in Berlin on the big stage, we say, hey, start timestamping today and do it with your wallet. What we saw is it was way too complicated for people. A blockchain wallet? What is it? How does it work? I was working with blockchain for over 6 years by then. So for me, it was super logical. Luckily, our head of product, he's a great UX guy. So, and we had a check from a girl on accessibility, and the team, the UX team, is as big as our tech team. So luckily, we were finally able to create a user-friendly product. And now, when Joost saw the new wizard, he said, "Oh wow, there's even inspiration for us at Joost to improve based on how good your setup wizard is." So we were really proud of hearing that. We moved blockchain to the background to make sure that it's easy to use without losing the decentralization, because that's always the discussion in blockchain land. So if you have a test site or a personal blog, try it yourself. It's super easy. I dare to say, after more than 1 year of tweaking on it, because the first launch was in May and the first official launch was June 21st last year. After more than a year of tweaking, we're working on it full time with a team of 3 for development in UX. Finally, I dare to say that it's user friendly. But every feedback is welcome. I will invite all of you to roast the project and do pull requests, improve it. For example, the ACF, if you want to bring it to ACF and you have the time or think that it's important, and please make a pull request for ACF, and we will test it fast and get it in the product, because it's really important that things like that are optional.
Great. Are there any more questions, guys, that you perhaps have just now understood you have before we move to the second part of the game? No? All right. Well, in that case, I will not have too many more questions. I mean, just the simplicity that you showed, that I wasn't able to sign up for many wallets and stuff. It's so complicated, and so many times but now that you said that it's so easy to sign up for WordProof, although being blockchain-based technology, then it's great. That I'm very happy that I'll be able to use this for sure. So
and one thing you asked in advance was about, is there a token or can you invest in WordProof and stuff like that? No, all the token shit, we got rid of the token. So there is a token, but that's just on the background to make sure that it's not possible to spam the project, or to make sure that hundreds of thousands of, because we had a test version and people were easily able to timestamp hundreds of thousands of copied articles. So we made a token, but it's totally on the background. It's an anti-spam measurement. So yeah, it's blockchain, but it's not a speculation thing. It's really about bringing integrity to the world of content and build a trusted web together with all of us.
Thank you. I mean, you've committed significant part of your life and time and effort, and you even almost sacrificed the wedding for it.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. So in that case,